decide what kind of business you want, um, I kind of thought of this as sort of what was my, I guess, best decision. And it's that kind of like I did with HP. Okay. Again, fantastic company. I always want to say that, but it wasn't for me. And when I started my business, I thought, I'm going to make a great big business, and I envisioned lots of employees and offices and all that stuff. But even at, 5 employees and a handful of contractors and, more clients and all that fun stuff, it wasn't fun. I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't my happy place. And it's this weird cognitive dissonance that goes on. And it took me a while. Like I kind of felt like I was failing, even though we were doing better than ever. But it's because I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And so when I overcame that and just went, I don't like this, I want a smaller business.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Chris Denny. And Chris was originally from Texas, went to Texas A&M for undergraduate, and then graduated and went and traveled backpacking for a few months. Then got a job with a small supply manufacturer, went back and got an MBA, worked for HP, said it was a great company, but in quotes was soul crushing. So the company that he worked with out of college had him come back. He got into marketing, got to where he could do his job for about 3 days a week. And so went to the owner and told him to move him to part-time, and he started his own business in marketing as well, and started doing research in that, and did that for about 6 years, building that out, and then started focusing more on workshops and giving attention online. And then fast forward to 2000, found they like to have partners, and so has been bringing partners on as well, and ended up doing a company with that. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Chris.
Hey, thank you so much, Devin. Really nice to be here.
Absolutely. So I just took a much longer journey and condensed it into the 30-second version, or 45 or whatever it was. But maybe unpacking that a bit, tell us a little bit about how your journey got started in Texas.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's funny to hear someone go through my life in about 30 seconds. Yeah, so I was born and raised in Texas, and was always there. Kind of in the Houston area. If you know Houston, it's just suburbs. And so I was in one of the suburbs. And yeah, like you said, went to A&M, and I can't say I always thought that I would do something entrepreneurial, but I always had the bug a little bit. But my dad was always a corporate guy, so I kind of figured I would just be a corporate guy. And so, you go to school, you get out, you eventually run into an MBA, and then you go work for a giant company, right? And like you said, HP, fantastic company. I mean, wonderful company, but the work wasn't for me. Just the whole big company thing wasn't for me. So went to a small company, and great folks there. I love that company. They're still a client. And but they taught me so much about how to run a business. And so that really inspired me to jump off on my own. So
now, going back just a little, because I think you jumped over part of your journey, so I'm going to rewind just a bit. So you graduated, and I think we talked a little bit before or after graduation, before you went to the working world, you decided you're going to go do the backpacking for a few months and have a time off. Is that right?
Yeah, sure did. So when I was at A&M, at Texas A&M, I saved up a handful of money, and yeah, I wanted to go play around first. So I didn't do the traditional thing when all my friends were getting jobs out of college. I actually was like buying the Eurail pass and, looking up the best plane ticket deals. And, so we're talking about 2000. So you didn't have quite the resources we have online. So it's a lot more phone calling and looking for the best deal. But I played around in Europe for a while. I spent a month in Europe, and then I spent a month in Mexico and Belize, just backpacking. And I went with a buddy in Mexico, and Belize. But in Europe, I went on my own, and I think I made it through 7 countries.
Hmm.
But made friends. I mean, there's still people that I keep in touch with, and stayed with a couple of friends that I had known through friends, and that's great. I recommend it for anybody. It's if you want to get a job right out of college, it's not the way to go. But if you just want to have an experience that you will never forget, and that you can always come back to it, because I love traveling, and my family and we still love traveling. In fact, I ended up marrying a European, so I spend quite a bit of time overseas now, and my kids, geez, they've already traveled. I mean, they're 7 and 10, and they've traveled more now than I did before I was 30. So it's just kind of fun. But yeah,
So
I
now
like it. It
you,
worked for me.
so now you go and and play, or I don't know, play or travel and go
Yeah,
around in Europe for a period of time. You come back after, but usually most time when I talk to people, it's like, well, I would have kept doing it, but eventually I ran out of funds and I actually had to get a job so I could afford life. So you come
pretty
back
much.
and you get a job, and I think that you started working out or started working for a small supply manufacturing company. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I came back. I mean, it was kind of part of the plan. I did kind of run out of funds, but I came back, and yeah, just I stayed with my mom, and every day, just again different time. So literally getting out the phone book and just started calling the types of places I wanted to work for. And actually, I got that job because I had talked to a consulting company who said, we don't have a fit for it, whatever, 21-year-old or 22-year-old, but one of our clients might be a really good fit for you. And so I ended up working for that company, a small supplier slash manufacturer. At the time, they were more of a supplier, and they did a little bit of manufacturing. And then, over the next 4 or 5 years, we did a lot of development through marketing and working with operations, and because their strength was really in and is in manufacturing. And so we kind of transformed them somewhat into more of a manufacturer with their own product lines and that sort of thing. So fun company, great company.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was there for about 3 years. And when I got the MBA, when you get an MBA, you're supposed to work for a big corporation. I mean, that's it. MBAs are all about being corporate. And so went to HP and was in I don't, they've changed the names, but at the time it was called ISS. I was in the servers division of the company, and I managed the worldwide supply chain planning or demand planning for processors. So it was a
Hmm.
cool job, super cool job. I mean, got to work with every one of the global entities, doing allocations, doing forecasting, super fun, worked with Intel and AMD. But like I think I mentioned to you before, one day I just looked, and I had 3 screens in front of me and spreadsheets all across my desk, and I was like, this isn't for me. And so yeah, so I word ended up getting around because I had a couple of beers with the guy I used to work with, and so the company I used to work for asked for me to come back, so I did.
So now in other words, so if I were to maybe paraphrase or put words in your mouth, but you can definitely correct me if they're
Go for
wrong.
it.
So
Yeah.
you work for the small manufacturing company, said,
Mhm.
okay, like to go get the MBA, maybe get a bit more background experience, kind of enjoy the entrepreneurial marketing, like
Yep.
to get a little bit more business background. Then you come out and, I get that because I went and got both the law degree and the MBA degree. And, all the friends that are in the MBA degrees, it's basically, hey, go work for a big finance company or a big marketing
Right.
company or business, or do something in that, which is kind of the convention. Sounds like you initially started in that convention, but then you're saying, hey, while it's a great job for me personally, not the business, it's soul crushing. In other words, it's
Yep.
not what I'm cut out to do, or it's not what I enjoy doing. And so as you're now going out and saying, what do I want to do when I grow up, which is what I usually say, then
Yep.
you're saying, okay, it's got to be something that's a bit smaller. And that's when the previous company that you'd worked for before came knocking, and you had that opportunity. So now how long, once you left HP and went back to the small company, how long did you stay with them for?
Um, I mean, as an employee, I was there for another 3 years, and then I mean, really, I've always been a systems person, so I had so many systems built up for my job, which became marketing. That was really my primary job, but I was kind of done by Wednesday morning, and so I just I felt bad, you know, and I was looking for other stuff I could do, but eventually I just went to them and I said, hey, it was a pretty simple proposition. I basically said, hey guys, I'd like to start a company. I'll keep doing what I do for you now for about half the cost, but I'm going to go do it for other people too. And they said, well, that sounds like a darn good deal. So, you know, have fun starting your company. And they were really encouraging. And they're still my, you know, great client. I mean, I think at the moment they're our biggest client because they've grown and grown over the years. And so it's been just a lot of fun continuing to work with them. And I mean, I was emailing with them just a moment ago. So we've got some really cool projects going on, but a great company. But yeah, so that's Lead Optimized. That's the company that I started in May 2008 is when I started
Now,
that.
one question on that, because I mean, when you go to your employer, I could see it going both ways. On the one hand, I'm saying, great, we had to pay you less and you get this, or the job we were paying you full time, you know, we're going to have to pay less for. Great deal for us. Why wouldn't you do it? And
Yeah,
on the other hand, some employees will say, hey, that makes me a bit nervous because now you already have one foot out of the door, right? In other words, if
right.
you're going to go start your own company, eventually everybody, you know, typically you start your own company with the desire that it will become a full-time gig, and so it kind of puts a time clock on your, you know, your time with them, and it also kind of shows, hey, I may not be here for the, you know, for as long, you know, for the long run type of a
Totally.
thing. And so how did they kind of interpret that? Were they pretty supportive and said, yeah, we're going to, you know, we're willing to support you and we understand we'll utilize the time that you're going to be here? Or are they more, you know, hey, he's one foot out of the door, we better start replacing her? Kind of, how did that go? Just because I think that a lot of people kind of get into that similar circumstance.
Yep, absolutely. So I was really lucky. So this company at the time, I mean, I think at the time they had, you know, 15 or 20 employees. Now they have about 60 or 65. So they're, you know, different sort of thing. Um, the two owners, the partners, were both and are really supportive of just being entrepreneurial and ideas. And they're one of those companies that, you know, they'll hire somebody and maybe they hire them, for example, as a salesperson, but then they realize that's not really that person's strengths. And when the person is relentless about sharing ideas with them, then they're like, hey, why don't you try that? So they were really open. So, you know, kind of special people anyway. But yeah, you can bet that when I went to talk to them with my idea, I was so freaking nervous. Like when I was done with my kind of spiel, they were like, "It's okay, you can relax now." Like it's okay, because I'm sure I was like visibly shaking and nervous and sweating, and you know, so they were ultra supportive. But yeah, I was super nervous. So it wasn't like I just confidently walked in and said, "I'm doing this." No. I walked in and kind of put the idea out
Hmm.
there, and then huge sigh of relief when they accepted. So, I mean, it was perfect. I could start a
Hmm.
company and get to pay my mortgage, you know? So the bigger conversation was with my wife, to be honest.
No, and that's probably for me too. I said I have all these crazy ideas and some of them work out, and I usually run them by my wife, and she's the
Yeah,
opposite of me. Doesn't have and no slight against her, 'cause she's awesome. She has no entrepreneurial bone in her body. She just likes going and working right now, or she's a full-time stay-at-home mom, which keeps her plenty busy. But even when she worked, it was
right.
always, hey, I just like to go in, know what I'm going to be doing, know I'm going to get paid X amount for X amount of work, and that's the end of it. And I don't have to worry about all those other things, which is the opposite of me. So I
Right.
get that the a lot of times you're going and talking with your wife because that's going to be the bigger one, or bigger individual is going to have an impact for them. So
Yep.
now as you're saying, okay, gonna go take half pay, gonna go and try and do my own thing. This was around 2008, which by the way, you picked a great time because the economy was doing wonderful then. Um, but you know, so you decide you're going to go out and do that on your own. How did it go? Or, you know, did it take off and it was a wild success? Was it one that took a while to find your footing? It ended up going bankrupt and going under. Kind of, how did it go
uh,
for you?
so the company, I mean, was pretty much profitable from day one. Again, super lucky. Like that's not the normal story, right? It took a lot of just grinding it. I mean, just the typical, you know, every again, 2008 phone books were still being used. So I would literally open up the yellow pages, and my niche was so working with that company, they operate through niches, so it taught me a lot about niches. So my niche became niches, and so I was an outsourced marketing department, still am, but at the time that was kind of a new concept. And, most people are an agency and they're either creative or they're digital or whatever. And we were like, no, we're your marketing department. So really picked up the yellow pages, circled a bunch of name or companies, the types of companies that I wanted, like mostly manufacturers, construction, some local service, and just started calling. And that sucks. I hate that. But I mean, it's like I hate it. And I don't do it now. I outsource all that stuff. But at the time you suck it up and you do it. And, of course, join the Chamber of Commerce and go there, and somebody introduces me to another networking group, and I go to that, a breakfast group, and then they introduce me to another one. And you just get involved, I mean, a small local business at the time I was in Houston, so really focused on the Houston market, and just get out there. And I mean, the word hustle is a bit overused these days, but it's kind of the best word for it. You just get out there and, you mentioned the economy. Yeah, 2008. Oh my God. So with marketing, you have a bunch of businesses that when the economy gets rough, you either have businesses that like double down, or you have ones that are like, we're not spending a dime on marketing right now. We're cinching our belts, cutting all costs, all that stuff. Obviously, that's an easy no, which is like great. But then you have the ones that are like, yeah, actually, we're really nervous about the economy. So especially when you get into networking groups and chambers of commerce and all that stuff, you can build those relationships, and those people go, oh, okay, you're for real. It looks like you know what you're talking about, and we want some help marketing because we're nervous that the economy is bad. And so fortunately, I found a handful of those clients who were nervous about the economy. They wanted to double down and really dig in and do more. So yeah, just kind of grew steadily, and eventually hired an employee and then another one, and had some contractors and that sort of thing. So it worked out.
Well, that's awesome. No, that's always great that it works out. And if you can be, even if it's not a huge amount of profit, being profitable from day one and having revenue and having clients, and then giving yourself a bit of bandwidth and be able to figure out, how you reach those clients and what your offering
Yeah.
is and how you're different, is always a great place to be. So now I think is that business still active, still going, pivoted, brought on? Because I know we also
Yeah.
talked about bringing on partners, and you found out that you don't like to work just by yourself. And so tell us a little bit about how it's evolved, or kind of how it's come to be
Sure.
about towards that today.
Yeah, sure. So the business grew. I mean, I think it never was a big company. I think the most I had 5 employees and a handful of contractors out there. Now I have one full-time employee, a contractor who's with us pretty much constantly, and then a handful of other contractors for specific tasks. Because I realized that's kind of what I want that company to be. So there are certain sizes and types of clients that I enjoy working with, and that word enjoy is sort of where the key comes around. And so that at some point, that's what I decided to do with that company. Like, that's the direction that I wanted that company to go, is just, let this be a company where we do fun work. We work for, I mean, obviously not every task is fun, right? But we do work we enjoy. We work with clients we want to work with. We did niche down in the early days, like any company kind of took any business. Now I really only spend resources looking for manufacturers and specific construction oriented businesses. And so that makes life easier. So it's a pleasant business to run. Now on this business, we've always been very good at what I call premium website management. So we are kind of taking that piece of the business and not separating it, but we're systematizing it further. And I'll be investing resources into that to make that a significant part of the business now, aside from the marketing. So as far as partners go, I almost took a partner on for that business. Sorry, it depends on what day you catch me on, right? So
No, you're
some
good.
days I'm like, man, I'm glad I never did that, because you get the autonomy and all that stuff. If you catch me at the right moment, I might go, I wish I had taken on that partner. It just, really just depends on the day. I think the business would be bigger if I had taken on the partner, and I'm confident it would be. But I ultimately, that's not really where I wanted that business to go. I eventually found that I didn't really want a great big business. Is not my thing. I like having a smaller business where I kind of work on projects and do some of the stuff I want. So, but I did end up, as you mentioned, with another business where I do have partners. So I've got, I don't know, you tell me where you want to go in the story, because I've got a couple of businesses that I work on. So
No, I think that's always a hard balance. And I ended up taking the route of I just don't do well with partners. Not that I don't like the idea of partners or I have anything against them, but for me, I just like I just like to have ownership of the business. Say, hey, if I make the decision, I'm accountable to me. If it goes well, great. If it doesn't go well, I can't point the finger at anybody else. But two, it's, I just like to, hey, I want to try out a new idea or pivot or go a different direction. And the more you involve partners, it makes a different dynamic. Now, if I argue on the flip side, it's also, it's nice to have someone that is vested in the business. So you're not the sole person that or shoulders all the burdens. You can bounce ideas off of them. They're going to be working, and be as involved as you are. And so there's those trade-offs. And I think everybody gets in there. And I think that, sometimes you feel like you have to go it alone, or sometimes you feel like you have to have a partner. And you come to find out, there's trade-offs with both of them. So I think that figuring that out for each business and how you want to tackle it definitely makes sense. With that, so now as we've kind of reached to the present day of your journey, always is a great time to hit on the 2 questions I ask at the end of each episode as a quick teaser to the audience. We also are doing the bonus question where we'll talk about the one crazy entrepreneurial idea. So if you want to hear that, definitely stay tuned after we wrap up the normal episode. But before we get to the bonus question, wrapping up the normal 2 questions, the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
let's see here. The worst, it's one that I've made a couple of times, and it's not unique to me, but I think the worst decision or action, I'm not sure, that I've done is keeping someone who's a poor fit for too long. Like continuing to pay someone, 3 months after you should have let them go, that sort of thing, because it's a drag on the entire system. It's a drag on there are actually 2 people that I've kind of got in mind for this, and they're, out of all the people over the years, but it's a drag on you emotionally. I mean, if you're a nice person, it just drags you. And then also it's a drag on other employees. It's a drag on the systems. I mean, you've got someone who's just probably not treating customers with the level of service they deserve and that sort of thing. So that's my biggest thing. I mean, that's, when I talk to other entrepreneurs, especially new ones, and they kind of say, hey, what's your advice? That's a big one for me is like, when that someone's not a fit, sever it. You're actually doing them as disservice too by keeping them. I mean, they're obviously, they don't have a long-term, they don't have a future with your company. So just let them move on with their lives and go. So that's the biggest one for me.
No, and I think that's hard. I think, it's interesting when you're on the employee side, you're like, oh, I would make great hiring decisions. And I know who are the underperformers, and I would just cut them off and I would fire them. And then you get into the employer situation. And one, it's a lot harder when you look at employee and say, hey, they have kids, they have a family, they've been with the company forever. Yeah, they might be slacking or might not be doing as good a job, but I could still use them, or, they're still worth it, or that. Or you're even making new hires. You're like, well, I think they're a good hire. Like everybody thinks they're the perfect, or they'd be the imperfect hiring position, right up until you have multiple candidates. They all seem reasonable on paper. They all seem like they're good hire, and you make your best guess and you hope that it works out, because until they really get in the position, you don't know. So I definitely get that, that one's kind of one where it's hard sometimes when to hire, when to fire, when to do it. And it's one of those where I think it really just comes with experience, because until you do it enough times, even after you do it enough times, you're still going to make mistakes on it. So I think that's a great one, or certainly an understandable mistake to make, but a great one to learn from.
Yep.
Second question, which is, now, if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Decide, this is hard, decide what kind of business you want. I kind of thought of this as sort of what was my, I guess, best decision. And it's that kind of like I did with HP. Okay. Again, fantastic company. I always want to say that, but it wasn't for me. And when I started my business, I thought, I'm going to make a great big business, and I envisioned lots of employees and offices and all that stuff. But even at, 5 employees and a handful of contractors and, more clients and all that fun stuff, it wasn't fun. I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't my happy place. And it's this weird cognitive dissonance that goes on. And it took me a while. Like I kind of felt like I was failing, even though we were doing better than ever. But it's because I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And so when I overcame that and just went, I don't like this. I want a smaller business that, okay, I don't make as much money doing it this way, but I like it more. It's easier to take a Friday off if I want. I can hang out with my kids sometimes. I can, I have more influence on the individual clients. I get to talk to them more and that sort of thing. That was a really big deal for me. So I try to, and it's so hard to do when you're out of the gate, but I try to tell people, be true to yourself. If you're an introvert, or if you don't like managing projects, or you don't like being a manager, or whatever it is, if you just want to work 2 days a week, it's up to you. Be real with yourself about that, and don't try to make something giant, or, if really you're kind of corporate at heart, don't think you're going to wear flip-flops every day and shorts and, so it works both ways, but just be true to yourself, be honest about it, and build what makes you happy.
No, and I think that's a great takeaway. And, I think that a lot of times people, well, I'm just going to go start my own business so I can be rich and make lots of money. And I'll be like, it's on TV and the movies. I'll work 2 hours a day and then I'll go take lunches and surf and those type of things. And
Right.
I think for 99% of people, it's not true. I don't know that running your own business or working for someone else is going to be or you're going to have, everything's going to be perfect and everything's going to be easy.
No way.
But I think if you can find the things that you enjoy, and if you're entrepreneurial bent and you enjoy that, then go after and do that, because it makes life a lot more enjoyable. Even if it's not, you make more money, you're going to enjoy it a lot more, and it's going to be a lot more rewarding. So I think that's a great takeaway.
Absolutely.
Well, as we wrap up the normal episode, before we get to the bonus question, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
So actually it's the business we didn't talk about. It's attention2detail.com. That's really the best way to find me and kind of see what I'm up to these days. But all spelled out, attention2detail.com. So, which is a consulting training company I started in 2017 because of research. I started in 2010. So sort of an accidental company, but it's I would call it my passion company. But yeah, that's the best way.
Awesome. I definitely will encourage people to reach out, connect, utilize a great resource, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. And so with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review so that we can make sure everyone finds out about all these awesome journeys. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. And now that we wrap up the normal episode, now we get to talk just a little bit about your one entrepreneurial idea. And I always kind of or preface this with it's that kind of that someday pile. Someday I'm going to get to this idea, or someday I think it'd be fun to pursue. And I may never actually do it, or it may not be that great of idea, but it's always kind of one that sticks in the back of your mind, or it's kind of that one crazy idea that you think it'd be fun to pursue. So with that, I think, one that you'd mentioned is that you have kind of be a YouTuber for kids program, birthday party, something along those lines set up. So tell us a little bit more about your one crazy entrepreneurial idea.
So this isn't even on the pile of maybe someday in the future for me. So if anybody wants it, have it. I don't want anything to do with it because I've got enough going on. I've got 4 businesses at the moment. So, but I have 2 boys, 7 and 10 right now, and they both want to be YouTubers when they grow up. And, they watch Preston Plays and I don't know, whatever, 5 other names that we've vetted and said, okay, these are clean enough for you and all that stuff. but they want to be YouTubers. I mean, and when we go hiking, we're in Denver area now. When we go hiking, they want to take cameras and they want to record and, be adventure agents. If you have little boys or probably little girls too, you know what adventure agents are. But I was driving along and I just thought, you know what? Kids love bouncy houses. They love these parties where you have a bouncy house. And I think there is room for someone to have a YouTube channel where you have to have sort of a story. It's got to be a little bit scripted, there has to be sort of an adventure component to it. But, you bring a couple of bouncy houses, you fill them with bouncy balls, you have Nerf guns, you have, I don't know, whatever, obstacle courses, all that stuff. And then there's some adventure, some sort of scavenger hunt that the kids have to find. And you come and they record it all. You have 10 cameras set up, you record it, and there's probably sort of a start of the show. Maybe you or one of your employees, but the kids are really involved and they, all the kids at the party get their time. Obviously waivers have to be signed, all that fun stuff. But after it, you go back, you do the editing, you put it on, and now boom, the kids are YouTubers, right? If they have a YouTube channel, you can, tag it and all that fun stuff. But I think kids would love it. And obviously every kid is going to share the video, and every parent's going to share the video that was made, especially the segments with their kids. And that can be your own marketing, like however you do your editing, and you can edit segments with each kid. But this obviously would cost more than the average bouncy house party. I don't know cost, I don't care, but I think there's a pretty good market opportunity for it. I can tell you that my kids would lose their minds if this was what we set up for them. But it's, be a YouTuber or something to that effect. Again, I'm not doing this. I was just driving along and my kids have been going, doing my head in about YouTube stuff again. And it came up, and it's one of another 300 ideas I've had over the years, but
hey,
yeah.
I get it, and I have more ideas than I'll
fun,
ever pursue. But no, and I think that's fun. I'll caveat it with, I don't understand the YouTube. I understand what they technically do, but I don't understand the mind frame of my career aspirations are going to be a YouTuber and how anybody actually makes money. Now, I do have one acquaintance that I know that is a full-time YouTuber, and they do pretty well. I also know a lot of people that have tried and failed and thought they would have all these great ideas. But I do think it's kind of fun because I think, to your point, there's a lot of kids out there, whether or not they will actually do it as a full-time career, think that that they are going to be able to make it big like everybody else they see on YouTube,
right? And
it's going to be something that is a great opportunity for them. So I think that there is a good opportunity there, and never know. Maybe someday you'll have to put it in the someday pile, and you'll have to get to it if none of the audience grabs it up and does it before you. So.
Yep.
Awesome.
It's just, be a YouTuber for a day, and it's easy to see the appeal. The kids watch someone make, that apparently to them at least makes tons of money, and they get to play video games. And when they're not playing video games, they're like filling up a house with bouncy balls and foam and playing with their friends and sticking stuff on the ceiling. If you've never watched a few minutes of a YouTuber, give it a minute and you'll get it, and B, you're going to go, oh my God, I don't want my kids watching this. So yeah, fun stuff.
I like it. Well, it's a great, crazy entrepreneurial idea. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the episode. Thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Yeah,
it's been fun. Devin. It's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. Take care.